Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Mythgard Academy. This is session number 12 on Morte Arthur, and it's funny because, of course, in almost any other class we've done in the Mythgard Academy, session 12 would be like, wow, okay, we're really pushing the limits here. You know, we're getting towards, this is getting to be one of the longest classes we've ever done, I would be saying, by the time we got to session number 12. But, no, that's not what I'm feeling here when we're getting to session 12. Yes, the comparison between the length of the Malory class and the length of any other session, of any other book we've ever done, it's not going to be really a fair comparison. There's no way we get done in fewer than 40. I would say, most likely, honestly. At the rate that we're going, it's long. I mean, it's hard because it's just about the longest book we've ever done, and it's in Middle English. So, I mean, a number of words, I think it's very much the longest book we've ever done. But you know, it's okay. No, we're not halfway. we're not halfway. we're here. This is the bit we've done after tonight, and this is the bit we've not done yet. So yeah, we're doing well. So yeah, and I do want to thank you very much for the good wishes of many of you who have been who were here with me last night too. So I caught some kind of vile plague from my children that my children brought home from school. So I'm kind of sniffly and leaky and all sorts of unattractive things. So I may have to pause occasionally tonight to attend to things. So anyway, I ask for your forbearance. I'm hoping my voice holds out. So far so good. It did last night. So anyway, that's we'll definitely we'll make it through it. I hope we should be okay with my voice. But anyway, yeah. So but I'm gonna be better. I'm absolutely gonna be better by the time I get to Kansas City on Friday. So that'll be good. That'll be completely fine. So anyhow, let's. I was gonna say let's get moving. Let's get moving. Let's. Actually, I see a couple people chatting on the Twitch channel. You're right that reading this book all the way through from cover to cover is kind of unusual. I mean, I think more's the pity. I mean, this is a great book from cover to cover, and in particular, I was going to add the schedule for the next bit is up. The next several bits, actually. I have an ambitious 6 or 7 more classes planned out, and I've taken us through the next section, which is the Book of Sir Gareth of Orkney, which is a lovely little story, sort of encapsulated little story. Sir Gareth is just adorable. So he's Sir Gawain's youngest brother. But anyway, he's adorable, and so there's that, which is self-contained, and that should only take a few sessions. And then after that, we get to the Book of Sir Tristram de Lyonesse. And the Book of Sir Tristram de Lyonesse is by far the part of this book that is skipped most. If you ever had any Malory in a survey class or even a medieval literature class or something like that, very likely what you got was this, the Book of Sir Lancelot and Queen Guinevere, and the Book of the Fall of Arthur, the last 2 books in here. Maybe you got the Holy Grail too, sort of the last 3 sections. Which, to be fair, is kind of the good bits. Maybe you got some bits at the beginning and some bits at the end, but almost everybody skips the longest section, which is the Sir Tristram de Lyonesse section in the middle, which is, I think, a terrible shame, because not only do you miss the story of Tristram and Isolde, which is, kind of big, though Malory certainly isn't like the greatest version of the Tristram and Isolde story in the Middle Ages. And he's a little bit half-hearted in the story of Tristram and Isolde because, of course, he's focused on Lancelot and Guinevere. But nevertheless, we do get the story of Tristram. However, we get so many cool things that happen. So not only do you miss out on, if you skip that whole section in the middle, not only do you miss out on the entire Tristram and Isolde story, but you also then miss out on all of the, the important background stories, the real progress of the plot of the Lancelot and Guinevere story. By the time we get to the end, to the book of Lancelot and Guinevere at the end, that's like the climax of the Lancelot and Guinevere story, but it's not. It's not really the heart of it. Much of it is already in the past by then. Things are already in motion, and we're kind of resuming the story already in progress when we get to that point to really see how the relationship grows from this ideal that we're given here in the Book of Sir Lancelot through to the disaster that's going to happen later on. You can't understand that without those parts in the middle, which are super important. So, but in addition, besides that as well, if you skip the Tristram de Lyonesse part, you also skip my favorite character in the entire Morte d'Arthur, which is Sir Palomides, the Saracen knight. I love Sir Palomides, and I have said already, and I will say again, that I think a standalone feature film on the story of Sir Palomides, it should totally happen. The only reason I think it's not been proposed is that nobody reads that section, so nobody knows how awesome the story of Sir Palomides is. Anyway, so it's that central section is long and meandering and digressive and contains a lot of tournaments which seem to be just like a lot of repetitive combat and everything, but there's so much beyond that. The way that he moves past simple scorekeeping, right? Who on horses whom, and who's winning this tournament, and what does this do to their overall rankings and that kind of thing. He goes way past that, and we begin to get some really fascinating psychological depth of his characters, and anyway, it's really, really fun. So this is all like I don't need a justification, because of course the whole premise of Mythgard Academy is we're reading and discussing the whole book, so it's not like I have to make up an excuse for why we're reading the whole book. I'm just explaining the benefits that you're getting from reading the whole book and being patient with the slow unfolding of this class. So anyway, okay. So we'll get there. First, quick, I wanted to remind you, this, of course, is still the second week of our fundraising campaign, and we're going to continue to celebrate not only everybody who donates to help support Signum and to keep things going for another year, but everybody who shows up. We're going to do some giveaways again tonight, like we did last week, except I'm going to do a different thing, just like I did last night, for those of you who were there last night. Last time, you may remember, we did two drawings, one drawing from everybody who was here and one drawing from everybody who donated during the class, so that those people get, again, to thank you for your generosity and your donations. You get two shots at the door prize here. So this week we're going to do the same thing, except the prizes are going to be different. You can choose a book like we did last week. So you can, you can choose one of the 5 books that we have here that you can get with a custom book plate and everything, just like we offered last week. Or you could choose 2 complimentary tickets to the regional moot of your choice, right? So you can, as long as you can get yourself to the moot, then the rest will be on us. And you can bring yourself and a friend for free to one of our regional moots. We have regional moots proliferating all over the place, and that's been a really fun thing that's been growing over the last 2 years now. So anyway, I'm excited about this. So if you win the drawing, you need to send an email to donate@signumu.org, the email address that's down here in the little red box down here, and either tell us what book you want or tell us where you live, and we'll try to hook you up with the region. Give you some more information about the nearest regional moot to you, and see if we can sort that out. Anyway, yeah. All right. So that's the story. Okay. So I'm going to do the drawing later on towards the end of the class, right? So we'll come back to that. And many thanks again to everybody who has generously donated. We've received wonderful support as always from everyone, and really, really thankful. If you haven't gotten a chance to donate, I sure hope you will. It's the one time a year we ask for your help to continue supporting, to enable us to continue to put out all this content for free, and to keep it free always, keep our tuition as low as we can possibly make it for our credit-bearing courses, and everything else free. This is something that is a major mission of ours, and we really... Signum University is planning to be a real force for change in education and higher education in America. We think it's time for change. We think that, the 21st century, the paradigm for 21st century education should be very different. And we think, we're working on developing what exactly that can look like and how that can work in much more sort of wholesome ways. Certainly all of those of you here in America know that it's kind of time to hit the reset button on higher education, and it's one of the things that we're working on. And you can be a part of that just by making a simple donation, a small monthly donation. It's you can really help to make that happen. So so if you donate tonight, I'll see it. I'll call up my list of people who donated tonight. So I'll see, for the sake of the drawing, I'll see that. But don't forget, we're also doing our sort of asynchronous drawing over the course of the entire campaign. So if you make a donation, please do remember, send an email to donate@signumu.org and just mention the Mythgard Academy, right? Because we're going to have a special drawing for everybody who donated and wrote in to mention the Mythgard Academy. We're going to do a special drawing for those people, and we're going to give away 3 anytime audit seats to any of our courses in the Signum course catalog that you want. Is full access to all the course materials, and also access to our library resources and everything, by the way, that you get with that as well. And that normally that's a tuition fee of $95 for our anytime audit seats, which you get one of those for free. And the grand prize is that you would... the grand prize for the Mythgard Academy drawing is that you get to do a solo nomination of a book. So you get to add a title of your own choosing to the finalist slate for the Mythgard, the next Mythgard Academy election. So that'll be fun. So that's so don't forget about that. So that means, of course, those of you who are watching or listening to this show after the fact, who are not able to attend live, you can still do that too. And if you've made a donation, if you have a recurring donation that is still running, that you're continuing through this year, whatever the situation is, just go ahead, send an email, donate@signumu.org, and mention Mythgard Academy, and we will enter you in that drawing, which we will do. We'll do the drawing during the webathon on the 13th, and I hope you will be able to join us for some or all of our traditional campaign ending webathon on October 13th. October 13th is going to be a really fun day. We're going to do a bunch of special sessions and talks and all kinds of things like we usually do. So, cool. Yeah. If you sent the email mentioning it, we totally got it. It should be fine. But I think, David, I can look into that. No worries. No worries. Very good. Okay. So that's what's going on. All right. So we'll come back and we'll do a drawing here at the end of class. But now we are going to talk about we are going to talk about Sir Lancelot. So last time, you'll remember, we were looking at Sir Lancelot as, you know, the way that he is put forward as sort of the paragon of knighthood, right? And in particular, we were noting with some interest, at least I was very interested, in the quite unusual moral stand that Sir Lancelot was taking about sexual morality, right? That taking a lover as, you know, taking a lady to love her paramours, is not okay, right? And it's gonna mess everything up. You're, through your own cursedness, you're gonna end up losing when you should win, or worse, winning when you should lose, and killing somebody by accident. Bad stuff is gonna happen if you don't live a clean life, right? And a clean life means no hanky panky, right? No, none of this. So Lancelot is. I was going to say suggesting. That's not quite the right word. Lancelot is championing, right, a form of morality which is genuinely countercultural. Might not seem countercultural. Like, hey, a Christian knight who says, like, don't have sex before marriage. Like, that doesn't seem totally revolutionary, but it totally was, actually, right? You know, we've already seen how even within this text, the sort of the culture of courtly love is still operable, right? And I keep saying I'm going to not use that phrase, but I can't help it because that's the traditional system that is continually being evoked, right? Like the ladies with their expectations for Sir Lancelot, everyone's saying not just, because it's not just, you'll notice, when he's captured by queens and they ask him to choose one of them to take as his lover, the point is not, Lancelot, we find you so dreamy and so irresistibly studly that we are desperate for you, and so we insist that you it's not about that. It's not about passion on their part, right? It's about status. It's about the game. It's about the system. And he's not playing the game. And he should play the game. It's inappropriate for him not to play the game. He is the highest target in the land, right? And here he is abstaining from the entire game, right? And also there's this implication that, you know, there's this kind of, we see already, and we're going to see more of this as we move forward, the fact that there's going to be assumptions about what's going on with him and Guinevere, right? Based upon the system, right? Well, okay, so Guinevere is his lover, right? So he's taken her as his, so presumably they love each other, paramours, right? And we saw the great objection, right? You know, Lancelot objected to that with great prejudice, right? He is willing to fight anyone to the death who suggests that Guinevere is not the truest lady to her lord living, right? She is completely faithful to her husband. Yes, he is devoted to her. Yes, he loves her above all and like honors and respects her above all other women, but he is not playing the game. That's the thing that he really, you know, as we already saw in several of these instances, making really clear. And again, I you know, it would be easy, I think, to get the impression that Lancelot is just like, you know, like an irresistible sex object or something. Everybody is like, oh, Lancelot. I mean, every single almost every woman he interacts with is like, and by the way, I'm totally into you, right? But again, it's not about him really, and it's in a sense not really about them. It's about status. It's about the game, and he is not playing the game. So it's fascinating because what this means is that Malory is essentially suggesting a very different fundamental definition for what it means to be the exemplar of knighthood. Right? In the past, and as I mentioned before, especially with Sir Lancelot, as I mentioned, Chrétien de Troyes invented Sir Lancelot to be the knight who is the ultimate paragon of courtly love, right? Let's take the knightly code and the sort of rules of courtly love, and let's show what that looks like taken to the extreme, right? And that was Lancelot in Chrétien de Troyes' version. Malory is suggesting something quite different than that. Right? Malory is, instead of saying So the knight who is the greatest of all knights is the one who is like everybody else except more, right? Who does what everybody else does, but he does it best, right? It almost sounds like that, and in some ways it is like that. Certainly in his prowess and his feats of arms, that's true. But the thing that's really, really fascinating is that in making him the exemplar, he makes him the exemplar in a way that actually makes him different from everybody. He embodies and champions an ideal which nobody else is even shooting for, right? Again, it's not even like everyone else is like, oh, I really wish I could be like Lancelot. They don't even get it, right? I mean, they don't even understand. Nobody understands. All the ladies are like, so I don't get it. Why aren't you, is there something wrong? Why aren't you taking a lady? And this is, again, it leads to all the rumors and stuff about Guinevere, right? In part because everyone's like, well, obviously he must be playing the game. So if he's not into us, this can only suggest that, he's like playing the game on the side and trying to keep it on the down low, right? They can't process the fact that it's actual, that what he's doing is actually different. So this is in many ways a weird kind of model, right? Lancelot is not just the greatest of all knights. He's, almost deviant, right? In his virtue. He is actually setting out to be better than is normal. To actually challenge the moral code of the entire system, which we see others uphold. So most of the rest of this story, the different scenes we're going to look at tonight, almost each one of which is more delightful than the last, is let's put this paragon of knighthood, let's put this guy who is trying to embody this really high ideal, and let's put him into all these different circumstances. Let's contrive all of these situations and see what happens, right? And two things that I would emphasize there. First, remember we already talked about the kind of simplest ones, right? Where we had Lancelot kind of juxtaposed to the two completely wicked knights. Sir Tarquin, the guy who was very, very powerful, but using his power purely abusively, right? In order to take vengeance and inflict dishonorable and unjust punishment upon other people, keeping them prisoner and whipping them with thorns and things like that and treating them despicably. He was very strong. So in some ways he was a direct counterpart to Lancelot because he was like the second strongest knight in the world as far as power in arms was concerned. Only Lancelot could possibly beat him. So in a sense he was Lancelot's opposite number, right? But that was sort of in many ways a kind of a simple contrast, right? Here's strength without honor, and here is strength with honor and virtue. And then similarly we had Sir Lancelot and Sir Paris, the conspicuously named Sir Paris, the knight who is all about kidnapping and molesting and raping and stealing from women. So you've got this sort of way overly high-handed actions by Sir Tarquin and these completely underhanded, despicable actions by Sir Paris, specifically targeting women. Once again, we see Lancelot as sort of a contrast between these sort of extremes, right? And that gets established. But most of the rest of all the rest of the stories that we're going to look at tonight are much more, sort of complex and creative, right? Those two are almost allegorical, right? Not quite allegorical, but almost. They have the feeling of almost like types, right? Like here's Lancelot and versus like one type of the bad, the good knight versus one type of the bad knight, Lancelot versus a different type of the bad knight, right? And so in a sense that's still kind of defining the terms, right? What does good chivalry look like? And we saw the nature of Lancelot's objections to these, especially to Sir Paris, right? Who taught you to be like this? How can you call yourself a knight and act like this? The second thing I would want to emphasize, though, about what I had just said before we go on to this next passage, is that I said that this is the story of a guy who is trying to follow these really high ideals. That, I think, is a really important distinction, and something that is not necessarily a given. That is to say, are we reading the story of an ideal personified, or are we reading the story of a dude who's attempting to follow the ideal? Either one is totally viable. In fact, if anything, the former would be rather more common, actually, in medieval literature. We kind of dig that kind of thing, right? If we were meant to read Sir Lancelot as like the personification of knightly virtue, that would be cool. I'd read that, right? I mean, that's, medievals liked thinking that way, and they enjoyed abstractions like that. And of course, you can get a lot of the same function out of it, actually. It's one of the things that you see in allegorical dramas, whether they be actual stage dramas, which was quite common in the Middle Ages, or whether they be, poetic narratives or something like that. When the whole point of doing an allegorical narrative like that is exactly to do this kind of thing. So let's take an ideal and let's examine it. Let's think about it, right? What does this, how does this one concept interact with this other concept? It's abstract thinking, but it's playing it out so it's like, running these really interesting kinds of scenarios, which helps us to understand the abstract concepts better. We learn a lot by kind of seeing how they act when we personify them and then get them going. As long as they're acting consistently to their allegorical ideals, then we can learn a lot about those ideals when we see how they interact with other things. So taking, ye old personification of knighthood, of like perfect chivalry, and putting that personification in a bunch of different scenarios would be a really interesting way and a very standard way for a medieval writer and a medieval audience to be like contemplating chivalry. Like, what does it even mean, right? What is knighthood? What are the virtues of knighthood? How are those virtues challenged? How do those virtues need to be maintained? What is their effect on other things? How are they influenced by other things? What things, can challenge? What weaknesses do they have that can be exploited by other things? What strengths do they have? And, there's all kinds of things you can learn from that kind of an allegorical thought experiment. But that, I think, is very much not this. This story is, and we don't have, I think perhaps yet, I'm kind of just going to have to ask you to take my word for this because we don't have quite enough data to really be able to firmly conclude this yet. But my thesis here is that's not what we're seeing. What we're seeing here is the story of a guy who is attempting to follow these ideal virtues because it's not going to pan out all the time. And we're going to see him fall short, significantly short at times. And yet, this is very much not going to be a story that is going to be sort of delighting in his fall or in his shortcomings. Anyway, sorry. That last comment, a slightly veiled, very slightly veiled dig at a lot of modern literature that annoys me, where so much of the premise seems to be taking that which could be high or great and tearing it down and being glad that it was torn down, triumphing over the failure of ideals. But anyway, sorry, we'll extracurricular commentary there. Anyhow, let's look at some of these situations in which poor Lancelot is faced. So this comes right. So he's imprisoned by those four queens, right? One of whom is Morgan Le Fay, one of whom is the Queen of North Galles, North Wales, and two other queens, all of whom are sorceresses, all of whom are bad news, who have captured him and are trying to make him choose one of them, right? And he says, no, you be refused of me, right? And then he's kind of sad because now he's in trouble, right? He's not going to get out. They say they're going to kill him, and he's like, okay, fine, I'd rather die with honor than live with dishonor. So he's kind of reconciling himself to death, but he'd rather live than die if he could get out of it with his honor. And that's when his the maid who is assigned to serve him comes to his assistance. Right, she is one of the ladies in waiting on the queens. I don't think we're ever told exactly which queen it is that she's meant to be serving. But of course, keep in mind, she turns out to be King Bagdemagus's daughter, and King Bag, that's not weird. Like, keep in mind, remember, she's serving a queen. So queens have in their retinue ladies who are the daughters of lesser kings or of dukes and lords and things like that. Like, it's so it's not like she's a servant in like the upstairs downstairs sense, right? She's not in service. She is a lady in waiting on one of the queens, and so she is the daughter of a king in her own right. That's totally normal and to be expected. Yeah. Okay. So she's going to help him out. "Sir," said she, "that is sooth, and for the renown and bounty that they hear of you, they will have your love." She's talking about how intent they are on, in fact, having him and killing him if he says no. "And, sir, they say your name is Sir Lancelot du Lac, the flower of Connectus, and they be passing wroth with you that ye have refused him. But, sir, and ye will promise me to help my father on Tuesday next coming, that hath made a tournament betwixt him and the King of North Galles. For the last Tuesday past, my father lost the field through 3 knights of Arthur's court. And if ye will be there on Tuesday next coming and help my father, and to morn be prime by the grace of God, I shall deliver you clean." "Now, fair damosel," said Sir Lancelot, "tell me your father's name, and then shall I give you an answer." "Sir Knight," she said, "my father is Sir Bagdemagus, that was foul rebuked at the last tournament." "I know your father well," said Sir Lancelot, "for a noble king and a good knight, and by the faith of my body, your father shall have my service, and you both at that day." Okay, so what do you notice here? What do we notice? So here's in Lancelot's actions, first of all, like, he pretty much passes all the tests. I was going to say, like, is he passing or failing? He doesn't fail any of these tests, tragically, right? So we don't really need to put that one on the table. Some of them he does a little better than others, right? But what do you notice in his response, right? In how he acts here? Yeah, Stephen, that's a really really important thing. He's not going to blindly promise his service without knowing whom he's serving, right? So on the one hand, he has the wisdom not to make rash promises, right? Which Arthur does not always show that wisdom, right? The making of rash vows is like a King Arthur thing. That's a tradition, actually, in Arthurian literature. So exactly, Milthalio, he makes no rash promises. So the caution and wisdom and prudence of that's clearly a thing, which, by the way, not a given necessarily as a knightly virtue, right? To be thoughtful and prudent and wise. So there's that. But it's more than just mere prudence, right? Notice that what he's doing by being prudent in this way is that he is preventing himself from being placed in another untenable position. He's just said, "I would rather die with honor than live with dishonor." If he the first opportunity he has to escape, if he's going to act essentially as a mercenary, if you save my skin, I will fight for you, and I don't care what the quarrel is, and I don't care whose side I'm fighting for or whom I'm fighting against. You can end up, fighting your own brother to the death on an island if you act that way, right? I mean, that's the kind of thing. Sir Balin would never have not fallen into this trap, right? Now, of course, it turns out not to be a trap. She's totally above board, and it turns out that her dad, whom she's trying to recruit him to fight on his side, is totally above board, right? Sir Bagdemagus, he's great. And Carita, I also too noticed that Bagdemagus is a pretty awesome name. It's one of my favorite names in the whole book, actually. Yeah. And Bruce, you're absolutely right. Not fighting in a bad cause for love or money was part of their knightly oath. Absolutely. They're not to act in a mercenary fashion, right? If you are just fighting for gain, you can't fight in a bad quarrel for gain, right? You can't fight on the wrong side. So yeah, he's making sure that he's going to be true to his oaths. I mean, you could say, well, beggars can't be choosers, right? I mean, what's he going to do? Lancelot is being true to the same principles that made him refuse the queens in the first place. Of course, I mean, that was, of course, about his sort of particular hang-up about sexual virtue, but it wasn't just that. Remember that they're also sorceresses and traitoresses. They have been not just in the sense that Morgan Le Fay has tried on multiple occasions to kill King Arthur, but that they betray knights all the time, right? They have caused the death. They've been the causer of the deaths of many knights, Lancelot says, through their treachery and sorcery. So even apart from the whole sexual virtue thing, it would be wrong of him to take one of them, right? To accept one of them, to bind himself to one of them. He would rather die than act on their part, right? Than be their champion, which is one of the things that that's a package deal, right? I mean, if you accept a lady as your beloved, you're her champion, right? That means if somebody else says of your lady something like, if somebody comes along and says, your lady is horrible and treacherous and like unjustly caused the death of many knights. Well, it's kind of your business then to like fight that dude to the death, right? To defend the honor of your lady. Lancelot couldn't do that, right? He would know. He'd be in the wrong, right? He'd be fighting a wrong quarrel if he did that. So the same kind of prudence that he was applying there, he's applying here, right? I'm not going to fight just anybody for any reason, even for the sake of saving his skin. I like that. Tarlonia was suggesting that Bagdemagus essentially translates to catch the wizard. I like it. Yeah, good. But of course, it turns out to be fine. Sir Bagdemagus is great. He knows Sir Bagdemagus. He approves of Sir Bagdemagus. He is totally willing to fight on behalf of Sir Bagdemagus against the King of North Wales. Now, but notice one other thing here. The reason Sir Bagdemagus is losing, it lost last Tuesday, right, and is likely to lose again this coming Tuesday, is that there are 3 knights of Arthur's court who are fighting on the side of the King of North Wales, right? Lancelot does not hesitate. That does not make Lancelot hesitate. She reveals that, right? She's not trying to hide that. This is not something that sprung on him later. She is totally upfront about the fact that there are 3 knights of the Round Table who are, or at least knights of Arthur's court, probably knights of the Round Table, who are on the side of the King of North Wales. So if he fights for her father, he'll be fighting against 3 of his companions, which is fine. He's fine with that, apparently. Yeah, James was just asking that same thing. They're fighting against him. Yeah, they were fighting against King Bagdemagus, those other 3 knights. So they're already doing that. I mean, Sir Bagdemagus is a knight of Arthur's court as well. Remember, he got dissed for the Round Table at the time when they took, Sir. It was really Sir Tor. It was down to Sir Tor or Sir Bagdemagus, and he took Sir Tor instead. Anyway, but despite the fact that he was dissed, he is still a knight of Arthur's court. It's fine, totally fine for different knights of Arthur's courts to be lined up against each other on different sides in a tournament, right? That's all sort of fair, actually. That seems like it's not a big deal. I don't see any reason to think that Lancelot is compromising his principles by doing that. Okay. Curator, here's that passage you're looking forward to. So Lancelot is tuckered out, right? He's still traveling by himself, and he finds this perfectly good pavilion, totally unoccupied, right? He's all tuckered out. He needs a nap, so he's gonna lie down, and so he lies down in the bed and goes to sleep, right? Than within an hour there come that knecht that walked the pavilion. He went that his leman had lain in that bed, and so he laid him adown by Sir Lancelot, and took him in his arms, and began to kiss him. And when Sir Lancelot felt a rough beard kissing him, he stared out of the bed lichtly, and the other knecht after him. I bet. And either of him got their sweardes in their handes, and out at the pavilion door went the knecht of the pavilion, and Sir Lancelot followed him. And there by a little slad Sir Lancelot wounded him nigh unto the death. And then he yielded him to Sir Lancelot, and so he granted him, so that he will tell him why he come into the bed. Sir, sighed the knecht, the pavilion is mine own, and as this knecht I had assigned my laddie to have slept with here, and now I am likely to die of this wound. That me repenteth, said Sir Lancelot, of your hurt, but I was a dread of treason, for I was lot beguiled. And therefore come on your way into the pavilion, and take your rest, and as I suppose, I shall staunch your blood. Okay. That's awesome analysis, Karina. Karina said this passage is like Goldilocks, Bugs Bunny, and Shakespeare all in one. Yeah, it really is. It really is. Yeah. Okay. So, this is really fun. So first, let's make sure that there's some vocabulary I want to clarify before we move on, right? So ought, of course, means own, right? That ought the pavilion. So this is the other knight's own pavilion, right? He owns it. He set it up himself, right? He went that his leman had lain in that bed. He went. He thought. He believed. So went is a really important word. It means like have intellectual belief of. He is strongly under the opinion that that his leman, which means his lover, was in that bed. Leman is a lovely Middle English word. It means it means my lover. It's like a term of endearment. It's like honey or cupcake or something like that. My lemon, lemon. So lichtly. He stared out of the bed lichtly. Stared is just what it sounds like. Like he jumped up out of the bed. He started up out of the bed lichtly. So lichtly means with great dispatch. So you have to imagine Lancelot like leaping in one motion right up out of the bed. He is starting up with great with great abandon. Okay. So let's see. Was there other things that I wanted to make sure to clarify? Nah, I think that was it. Okay. So again, this could have happened to anybody, right? But what do we see? What do we see happening here? Right? What do we like? What's the point of this story? I mean, it's funny, right? But what do we see in this story? So first of all, yes, Tarlonio, you're absolutely right. This is partaking of one of the like rules, right? And you can see this in Shakespeare all the time. You can see this in Chaucer all the time. When the lights are out, you can't tell whom you're in bed with, right? Until you make physical contact, and sometimes not even then, right? So yeah, Blue Wizard the Beard is really the only clue. I mean, you'd think that like the manly figure of Sir Lancelot. I mean, it might make you wonder what this dude's girlfriend is shaped like if he mistook Sir Lancelot for his girlfriend. But you shouldn't be thinking that way, right? It's dark. And there's a person in the bed. That's it. Darkness covers all. Torlonio has it exactly correct. You can't, there's no way of telling. So like, for instance, if it's a woman, right? If it had been a woman, I mean, he very well could have not found out until afterwards. That is to say, had there been a strange woman in that bed when, like, this other knight whom we don't even know the name of yet, when, like, Mr. Knight who owns the pavilion, so when Sir the Pavilion comes in, if there had been a lady in that bed and he had pounced into that bed, and she had been amorously receptive of him, like, and it wasn't his lady, there's no way he could have found out until afterwards. Like, absolutely no way. The only reason that this was discovered until things got even more embarrassing was the beard, right? So you can tell the difference between a man and a woman in the dark. That's one of the rules. You can tell the difference by the beard, principally, right? Yeah, so you can sort that out, but you can't tell one woman from another. You can't tell, a woman can't tell one man from another. Just like if you're wearing armor, you can even have a conversation. Nobody can recognize your voice. Nobody can tell that it's not you, unless until you take your armor off. So, yeah. Now, James, I agree. I agree that Lancelot would probably have jumped out of the bed, beard or not. I agree that Lancelot, had it been a lady, right, who had come in thinking that Lancelot was her knight, waiting for her there. Because again, apparently he had that was the other word I wanted to talk about. I missed that. Assigned. I had assigned my lady to have slept with her. That doesn't mean like I gave her an assignment. It doesn't have any of the modern implications of assign. It's like the modern word assignation, right? We made an assignation. That's what he means, right? I had assigned my laddie. Like, we communicated and we agreed this time, this spot, right? So I had this pavilion pitched special for the occasion, and she was supposed to come to this pavilion at this time on this night. That's what he means by assigned. It wasn't like, he gave her homework or something like that. There's none of that kind of implication. But anyway, so yeah, had the lady come in and pounced on Sir Lancelot, understandably mistaking him for her lord because, hey, it's dark and he's a dude, right? Then I agree. With James Stevens that he would have jumped out of the bed. He probably would have stared bleakly out of the bed. Even then, presumably there would have been less bloodshed, however, had that occurred. And you'll notice that even with the other knight, he doesn't just like start hacking with his sword or anything like that. Like he leaps out of the bed, the knight leaps out of the bed, and then they both exit the pavilion expeditiously. Right. And the other guy goes out first. So Lancelot he's not exactly picking the fight. He's certainly not just like resorting instantaneously to violence. And certainly he would not have done so. I feel very confident in saying, that he would not have drawn his sword at all had it been a woman. But I agree he would have stared up bleakly. Notice that's what he's talking about, right? Why was Lancelot so jumpy? Just because he felt some dude come into the bed and kiss him, right? The reason he was so jumpy, he says, is I was lot beguiled, right? I was a dread of treason, for I was lot beguiled, right? I was afraid that this was some kind of setup. Now, you might ask, as Torlonio asks, why does Lancelot just go around bedding down in random pavilions, which presumably belong to somebody else who maybe, I don't know, had a plan to sleep there himself, right? Possibly even with his lady. So, and I'm uh, um, I have no real answer to that question, other than there seems to be a bit of a like, I'll just like take the adventure, you know, that has been ordained to me kind of spirit about that, right? You know, Lancelot doesn't say this, but it's almost like he says, like, I am weary after a long day. He's like, a pavilion, right? And a bed, and no one's in it, right? I shall take this pavilion laid ready for a sign and go to sleep, right? That's almost his attitude towards it, right? Yeah. Karina, I agree. This turns out to be the worst date night ever. Yeah. Absolutely. It's a great subtitle for this this little escapade. Yeah, finders sleepers. Exactly, Catriana. But so Karina wants to know, why couldn't they talk it out before stabbing at each other? And that's a really excellent question, actually. Why can't we have conversation first and combat second, rather than the other way around? And the only thing I can say to that is that we need to put ourselves into the position of both of the combatants, right? First, you are Sir the Pavilion, right? You have made an assignation with your lady, not just your lady, your lehman, right? So this is an established deal, right? This is your beloved that you have made an assignation from. As Carita says, it's date night, right? So it's date night in the pavilion. You've come to the pavilion, and there's a random, you think that your lady's in the bed, and it turns out instead of your lady, it's a random dude. Okay? What are you thinking? Why are you reaching for your sword and entering into combat first and asking questions and entering into conversations second? She is not with him yet, Devra. No. She's coming along. She'll be there soon, but she is not. They are not together. Sir the Pavilion and his lady. Oh, right. He might be thinking. Oh, right. He might be thinking that she's with the guy, right? What, like on the other side or something like that? Yeah. That she's cheating, right? Exactly. Yes. As Deborah is suggesting. Sorry, I was being thick there. And as Mike is as Mike is suggesting as well. Yeah. He might think that she, like, there's another man. This is like the pavilion that he set up for himself and his lehman, and there's another man in their bed, right? I mean, that looks bad. That looks really bad. What is she? Did she come early? I mean, was she like, is she cheating on him this whole time? Is she like, hey, I've got this other, like, you know, super studly knight on the side, right? And I know that my lover is setting up this really convenient pavilion, so I'm going to ask my other lover to show up, like, you know, an hour and a half early, and then like, and you know, so then, you know, we can do our thing, and then you know, I'll come in later on and be like, oh, hi, you know, time for you now. Like, yeah, it could happen, right? Could happen. It's possible. Now, Francis asks, does he think that Lancelot killed her or captured her or something like that? David Urbach is wondering the same thing. Did he abduct her or something like that? That seems to me a little bit less likely. Just because she's nowhere in evidence, right? If she'd been abducted, he probably wouldn't have kept her there in the pavilion. And again, if she's not complicit, there would probably be some form of ruckus, right? At least that's what we see. I mean, remember when the lady gets hauled away, the lady who turns out to be Nimue gets hauled away from King Arthur's court during their wedding feast, and she's screaming and everything the whole time, so that when she leaves, Arthur's like, finally, some peace and quiet, right? I mean, that's the standard model, right? I mean, you know, so had he come and he found his lady not there and the whole place in disarray or something, you know, then he might have been like, oh my goodness, somebody came and kidnapped her. But I think it's, I think it's definitely most likely that he is imagining that this is a rival, or this is his lady's other man. He feels that he's probably been betrayed. That, I think, must be what Sir the Pavilion is thinking here. But one way or another, this dude is obviously a threat and probably a rival, right? So he's not gonna ask, oh, I'm sure there's a perfectly innocent reason why you're lying in my, in my lover's bed in my pavilion. Sir Lancelot explains he thinks he was late. This could be a trap set for him by the sorceresses. Again, remember what happened to him. He went to sleep under a tree, right? He was taking a lovely nap in midday under the hot sun beneath a tree, and he wakes up and he finds himself in a bedroom in a castle, and the four queens show up and are like, you're our prisoner now, you must choose one of us. This is the kind of thing that has already happened to Lancelot, right? So when all of a sudden he finds wacky hijinks occurring, right? And like a man trying to kiss him. No, in fact, succeeding in kissing him, right? In the bed. Again, he's like, okay, like the trap is being sprung. So he does kind of think he knows what's going on here, right? So, if you want to, if you want him to, or rather, if you want to dock Lancelot some points here for jumping to conclusions, right, for leaping into this combat without seeing if in fact this is a simple misunderstanding, I think that's maybe fair, especially under the circumstances where he's kind of put himself into this position. I mean, if he is being exploited or trapped or ensorcelled or something, he put himself in that situation, right? I mean, he's like, oh, look, a tent, totally unoccupied, with a bed. I think I'm just going to lie down and sleep in it because, like, what's the worst that could happen, right? I mean, he kind of put himself in that situation. And so his overreaction, it's almost like he's planned for that, right? Like he goes to sleep probably half expecting something weird and treasonous to happen to him in the night. So, when he finds himself being kissed by a strange dude, he's like, okay, wasn't expecting that, but I guess this is it, right? I guess this is the unexpected stroke of treachery that I was waiting for. Do I think that that's perfect? No, I don't think that that's a perfect reaction by Lancelot. But I will say, once he nearly mortally wounds the knight, and they do talk it out, right, post grievous wounding, and they begin to have their conversation, and the knight's like, dude, it's my tent. Like, what is wrong with you, right? I came here for date night, and now, like, I'm likely to die of this wound that you gave me. Lancelot apologizes. He's like, oh, yeah, I'm real sorry about that. I me repenteth of your hurt. But I was a dread of treason, for I was late beguiled. Therefore, come into the pavilion, take your rest, and as I suppose I shall staunch your blood. By the way, I think I saw somebody mentioned earlier on that I suppose I shall staunch your blood. I don't take that as Lancelot being reluctant to, like, I guess I can staunch your blood. I mean, I can't really be bothered, but I don't think that's what he says. I think when he's saying, yeah, Arthur, no, that is a great question. I think when he says, I suppose I shall staunch your blood, you should like this, Arthur. I think he is being modest about his medical skills, right? When he says, I suppose I shall staunch your blood, I believe that means I'll try to staunch your blood, but I'm not making any promises that it's going to work, right? I'm the greatest knight in the world, not a doctor. So yeah. Now Karita wants to know if the guy is just being a whiner or if he's really in danger of dying. The narrator says that he wounded him sore nigh unto the death, right? So he has a pretty serious wound. It's apparently not like a mortal wound, apparently. So he's not been stabbed in the heart. He's not been, there's lots of things that haven't happened. But as you can see, people recover from some pretty grievous wounds, right? Impaled by a spear, you'll probably be fine, right? Just find a hermit and he'll fix you up. You might have to, lie down for, a few weeks or something, but it'll be fine. He's obviously bleeding a lot, right? That's what Lancelot is concerned about. I'm going to staunch your blood in order to stop you from dying, right? Presumably if the flow of blood from his wound is untended, he probably would bleed out, and both of them know that. So he's gonna so I think he is offering sincerely and genuinely offering help. He's just being humble about his ability to render that help. So he is very courteous to the knight once the misunderstanding is cleared up, right? Should he maybe have not allowed this to progress to that extent? Maybe not. But, okay. I wanted to comment. I didn't do the whole rest of this passage. There's so many comments that keep going by, and then I'm remembering them for later. And that's Carita again. Carita says she loves the knight's lady, who I agree. Carita also pointed out that the leman of Sir the Pavilion when she shows up seems to be the only female. She's the only person with 2 X chromosomes who's not into Lancelot, right? Instead, she's like, dude, you murderer, you killed my beloved. And Lancelot's like, no, he'll be fine, right? And anyway, so Carita's further comment was, the knight is like, baby, we're good, it's all good, don't be upset about this. And she's like, shut up, I'm leveraging a promotion for you out of this, which of course is exactly what happens, right? Not only does Lancelot help to save his life, it prevents him from bleeding out from the wound that he gave him. So he's going much further than simply accepting his surrender, right, which he did do. He showed mercy to a defeated opponent. But he's gone beyond just, not killing him. He then treats his wound. And what's more, he does offer reparations, essentially, right? The lady's like, hey, put in a good word for us at King Arthur's court. And he's like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. And of course, as we're going to see at the very end, this dude whose name I still can't remember, Sir the Pavilion, is going to be made Sir the Pavilion Knight of the Round Table at the end of the story. So Lancelot is going to stay true to his word here. So, was he somewhat at fault? Did he not play that whole pavilion thing quite right from the beginning? Yeah, I think that's possible. But what does he do? He makes it right. He does everything that he can and really goes above and beyond to make it right. Hard to see Sir Gawain doing either one of those things, either staunching the other knight's wounds with his own hands or then bringing him into Arthur's court and vouching for him later on. So yeah, no, I agree, Carita. This whole passage is so much fun. There's like almost no stories in this, no segments of the Book of Sir Lancelot that I don't just love. Okay, so here's the Hard Day's Night. So Lancelot, you'll remember, this is when Lancelot is already in bed for the night again. Once again, Lancelot being awoken in the middle of the night. This time, so he's been given a garret. He's in an upstairs attic room of this other guy, this farmer. And then he hears out the window, and he sees this one knight being pursued by 3 other knights. So he sees this act of dishonor, right? It's a 3-on-1. That's not okay, right? And what's more, the one knight is trying to run away from. He's trying to get away from the unfair odds, and they're pursuing him. This is all kinds of bad, right? So he looks out the window. Truly, sighed Sir Lancelot, yonder unknight shall I help, for it were shame for me to see 3 knightes on un. and if he be there slain, I am partner of his death. And therewith he took his harness. So he does put his armor on first. And went, which is not a given, by the way. He did put his armor on. Lancelot does not sleep in his armor. And there will be occasions on which that will be more of an issue, right? So it's interesting here, in fact, that he takes the time to don his armor before he jumps out the window. And went out at a window by a sheet down to the four connectors. Lancelot actually ties his sheet to the bedpost and lets himself down out the window in full armor, right? I don't know what the thread count was on those sheets, but it had to have been pretty good. And thon Sir Lancelot said on hiked, "Turn you connectors unto me, and leave this feigting with that knecht." And then they three left Sir Kay, and turned unto Sir Lancelot, and assailed him on every hand. Then Sir Kay dressed him to have holpen Sir Lancelot. "Nay, sir," said he, "I will none of your help. Therefore, as ye will have my help, let me alone with him." Sir Kay, for the pleasure of that knecht, suffered him for to do his will, and so stood on side. Then anon, within 7 strokes, Sir Lancelot had stricken him to the earth. And they all three cried, "Sir Knecht, we yield us unto you as a man of meeked Maculus." Okay. Karita, how long does it take to put on his armor? Not very long. It's super easy to do, especially by yourself in the dark, right? Just trust me. Putting on full plate armor by yourself, you can just kind of shrug into it. That's a lie. Of course, but it's part of the fiction. Roll with it. Just roll with it. Here's another thing. Armor is one size fits all. Everybody knows that about plate mail too. Pretty much anybody's armor you can put on, and it'll be fine. Right. So, yeah. Okay, just clarifying, just clarifying the rules, right? That's a thing. You can just and this is one of the really fun things, right? Because Thomas Malory was a knight. Sir Thomas Malory wore plate mail himself. He's under no illusions about this, right? I mean, this is his area of professional expertise. Nobody knows better than Sir Thomas Malory that none of that stuff is true. That you can't just put your own, it's hard to put your own armor on at all, much less fast. Armor certainly is not one size fits all. And yet, he's fine, right? He's fine with that. He is not bothered. That kind of verisimilitude is not his interest at all. And I think that, again, it's one of the things that we can conclude here. He knows full well that that's not how things really work. But he obviously doesn't care at all. And so, therefore, he's willing to proceed under these explicitly sort of fictitious frame elements, right? Sort of the rules of his little fantasy world here, his little chivalric fantasy world. He knows them to be different from the real world, but that's fine. It's okay. He's okay with that. He doesn't care. Just as I kind of suspect that, Shakespeare and Chaucer and Sir Thomas Malory all knew perfectly well that, in fact, it is possible to tell the difference between one woman and another in the dark, right? I'm guessing that they knew that in fact was possible, right? And yet, it's sort of the rules of the frame, right? It's sort of the ground rules that they are willing to play because it's not about realism in that sense. It's not the priority. Again, it's not like he's making mistakes. It's not like he's hoping we're not going to notice. Again, these are things that he knows perfectly well, and yet has obviously made the choice to just leave aside, right? It's fine. Totally fine, because that's not what he's interested in. So this is an interesting thing to keep in mind, right? Is Sir Thomas Malory interested in depicting, like, what it's really like to be a knight? No. If so, he wouldn't do stuff like this, right? He wouldn't have people meeting Saracens with magic balms that can cure arterial bleeds, in 5 minutes. I mean, he wouldn't do. He knows perfectly well that doesn't happen, right? He knows perfectly well that knights can't carry on like this. But that's okay. That's not the kind of story. Again, that kind of realism, that kind of gritty, the real knight's perspective on knighthood, that's not what we're getting here. Instead, what we are getting, maybe, is a real knight's sort of idealism of knighthood, right? It's the concept of knighthood, it seems, that he's much more interested in, how knighthood acts, rather than, again, like the day-to-day experience of being a knight. That's boring, after all. So Marilyn is a great question. So what is he interested in? Again, in the tale of Sir Lancelot, I think we can see it as clearly as we can see anywhere else. He is really interested in this, I think, in this sort of abstract question that we sort of started with. How does the dude who is trying harder than anybody else to attain the perfect knighthood, how does he act? What does that look like? When you put that into different situations, how does it act, right? What is it? At different times of day, in different crazy, often difficult circumstances, right? What does it do? What would a guy do? And yet again, he doesn't cease to be a guy, as we saw with the last one, right? With the pavilion story. Sir Lancelot's not perfect, right? He's a guy who's trying to do well, and we see him, trying to make up for any mistake that he made. But yeah, he's much more interested in those kinds. So he wants Lancelot to get armed. In other moments, as I said, it will be an important part of the story that he is unarmed when he's caught at night. But in this here, he wants him armed. He wants him fighting against these 3 other knights. We want to see his reaction. Notice his reaction. Notice the weight of his reaction. This is not just like, hey, somebody's in need, I should go help. He takes this much more seriously than that, right? It were shame for me to see 3 knights on one. And if he, the one knight, is slain there, I'm partner of his death. I'm like an accomplice to the murderer of that knight if I don't do anything, right? That's how seriously Lancelot takes the responsibility to help when he sees this kind of an injustice being acted out. Remember Sir Gawain and and Sir Pellias, right? When he saw Sir Pellias overcome by the 10 knights, and then then he let himself get taken by the 10 knights, and they treated him shamefully and tied him under his horse's belly and dragged him off. And the lady, the 15-year-old girl who was his guide, right, the 15-year-old damsel who was Sir Gawain's guide, was appalled that Gawain would sit back and watch this happen. Now, I was saying at the time that I thought that Sir Gawain's reaction was understandable. He's like, well, clearly that guy is choosing this, right? And what exactly Lancelot would do in that situation, where again it was clear that the knight, Sir Pellias in that case, was submitting to that indignity, I'm not 100% sure. This is not exactly the same situation, but what I'm remembering there, though, is that the 15-year-old damsel seemed to be responding in very similar terms to this, right? You saw another knight being mistreated and you just stood there and you didn't do anything. That's kind of appalling, right? It's like you might as well have dishonored him yourself. Again, I thought that was a little bit unfair at the time, and I still think it's a little bit unfair of the 15-year-old damsel to say that. But yeah, that's Lancelot is much more proactive. So this is why he's letting himself down from the window by a sheet, right? Because it's his job not only to help, but to take the shortest distance between the 2 points, right? To go out back and use the stairs No, that's not good enough. So anyway, the other interesting thing here, and I'm not quite sure what to do with it, is when he won't even let Sir Kay help. What do you guys think of that? So now keep in mind, he doesn't know it's Sir Kay yet, right? We're being told that it's Sir Kay, which is an interesting element, right? That is, we know that the person who is the knight who is being treated unjustly, who is being teamed up on by these other three knights, happens to be Sir Kay, central member of Arthur's court, and somebody whom Arthur cares a great deal about, and whom Lancelot would certainly want to protect. Lancelot doesn't know this, right? Because that's not what matters. This is not like, Sir Kay is in need, I shall come to his assistance, even against greater odds. That's not the point. The point is an injustice is being done. That's 3-on-1. That's not right. If it turned out that those three knights were three knights of Arthur's court, and the one was, like one of the knights of the King of North Wales or something like that, Lancelot would still have acted the same. The fact that it turns out to have been Sir Kay seems to support his overall choices, right? He did the right thing, and his choice to do the right thing was rewarded by circumstances, right? As it turns out that it was Sir Kay that he was rescuing. Yeah. But, oh, wait, hang on. One last thing I forgot to say about Sir the Pavilion. Is I didn't think of it until I was in the middle of reading the passage. Then we got talking about other things and I forgot. On the subject of Lancelot being proven right by circumstances. Sir the Pavilion, Sir owner of the Pavilion, was not following Lancelot's high moral code, right? He had taken a lady paramours, right? That's why the assignation in the pavilion, right? And as a consequence, what happened? Because of his cursedness, unhap came upon him, right? He was unhappy by ending up on the wrong end of Lancelot's sword that night and taking a wound that almost killed him, right? That wouldn't have happened. That wouldn't have happened if he had not been messing around with his lady, right? Arthur says I would be unhappy too, understandably. Yeah. Tarlonia wonders where Lancelot is when King Pellinore needs a little unhap. Yeah, I hear that. Yeah, he wasn't around to be the instrument of unhap to others. But yeah, unlucky. Like, just bad. If you act that way, Lancelot said, right? If you act that way, bad stuff is going to happen to you, right? And look what happened. Bad stuff, right? There you go to your pavilion, and the next thing you know, you're kissing a dude, and then he's stabbing you, right? I mean, that's according to Lancelot's principles. It's the kind of thing that happens if you carry on that way, right? Just wanted to point that out. Now, and notice, but there's another end of that too. Had that knight died, right? Had Lancelot in fact killed him, that would have been unhap for Lancelot. Remember, that's one of the other examples that he gives. You might experience unhap in the form of being defeated by somebody, right? Or you might experience unhap in the form of defeating someone that you shouldn't have and killing somebody that you'll regret killing, that will turn out to be bad, right? This is the kind of unhap that Sir Balin was always experiencing, right? Either one of those. So notice how the knight of the pavilion experiences one form of that unhap, right? Lancelot avoids the other side, right? He wounds the knight, but he doesn't kill him. And in fact, he's able to save him. And in fact, he's able to get him promoted to the Round Table. So in fact, all turned out well. Lancelot ended up being an instrument not of unhap in the end, but of good fortune to that knight. So he ended up being a blessing to this knight. Whereas, again, by Lancelot's own argument, if Lancelot were the kind of guy who was immoral in these ways, through his own cursedness, he probably would have ended up killing the guy, right? And then the lady's going to show up, and what's she going to do? Stab herself to death, and then he's going to be standing over 2 corpses, just like Sir Balin did on more than one occasion, right? Lancelot doesn't have that kind of problem. Now, we know Sir Balin didn't exactly have a fornication problem. He had a decapitating ladies problem, which is a different kind of issue. But still, the kind of unhap that we saw, unhap in retrospect, isn't that a really good word for Sir Balin, right? It really kind of, unhap, an accumulation of unhap, kind of explains a lot about Sir Balin in retrospect, I have to say. Anyhow, so I just wanted to point that out, the unhappy business about the Knight of the Pavilion. So back to Sir Kay here. So, why does Lancelot refuse the one knight to help him? He's not just like, I shall side with the one knight against the 3. That's not his goal. His goal is to replace the one knight. I'm going to tap out the knight, right? So I'm just going to tag team with him, right? He's going to tap out. I'm going to come in and I'm going to fight the 3 all by myself. And when he offers to come in and help them, so it's 2 against 3, still outnumbered, he's like, no, I will none of your help. As ye will have my help, let me alone with him. Why? Why? Yes, Devra, that's my thinking too. He wants to shame them. He sees this as this is a question of shame, right? You know, I said he sees an injustice being done. No, that's not the vocabulary of the text. He sees shame being done. These 3 knights are acting shamefully in teaming up on this 3rd knight in the way that they are. It's not quite as bad as Sir Paris, the molester of women, but it is in the ballpark. You know, they're acting unknightly, they're acting shamefully. So he comes in and he does seem to want to be the instrument of their shame. Like he's going to teach them a lesson. He's going to come in and he's going to learn them, right? And if it's 2 against 3, that doesn't convey the message properly, right? It's like he wants them to recapitulate their crime. Okay, 3-on-1. You like 3-on-1, right? Okay, show me again. Let's do the 3-on-1 thing, right? I want you to double down on the 3-on-1, and then we'll see how that works out for you, right? And then I'm going to teach you about never doing that again. Because, of course, as we see afterwards, he proceeds to shame them more, right? Notice how they're trying to they compliment him at the end. And notice this is Lancelot. Lancelot has several gears, right? Lancelot in low gear is like Lancelot at tournaments. And he'll, kind of play along and not embarrass other people and stuff. And then there's Lancelot in like high gear when he's, killing people with every blow, like driving his sword all the way down into, people's sternums and stuff, through the crown of their heads. But then he has this like middle gear, right? Where he means serious business, but he's not trying to kill anybody, right? So he does have that middle ground. And this is clearly that middle ground, right? He is not playing with these 3 knights. And yet you'll notice how none of them ends up dead, which presumably he could have done, right? So this is not like Lancelot fighting a giant, for instance, where you're fighting a giant, all bets are off, right? First you cut him off at the knees and then you chop him down through the head. He's got a technique, right, that he uses against giants. And again, each blow practically is a mortal blow when Lancelot is in that kind of a situation. Here, 3 knights, 1-on-3, he's not, this is not he's ending this combat as quickly as he can, and yet he has no desire to kill these 3 men. Exactly, James. 7 strokes, right? he uses 7 hits with his sword. So apparently one of them he had to hit 3 times, fully 3 times, before he had stricken him to the earth. But this fight is over very quickly. And they yield to him. We yield us unto you as a man of meeked, matchless might. Right? You have no mock. You have no peer in the world for might. But notice in yielding themselves unto him on those terms, they are essentially saving face, right? Because they are, we're yielding ourselves to you because you are so much stronger than, like, we didn't have a chance, right? We now see, in retrospect, we didn't have a chance even 3-on-1, right? So since you're obviously the strongest knight in the world, we yield ourselves to you because, hey, everybody loses to the strongest knight in the world, right? Anyway, Lancelot won't have it. Remember what he does with them? Right? Remember what he does with them? He makes them yield to Sir Kay. And they're like, dude, that doesn't even make sense. He didn't beat us. We were totally beating him, right? You are the one who beat us. We yielded to you, and so therefore we should yield ourselves to you, right? And he's like, nah, you're going to yield to him. And he's doing that in order to shame them. And he's like, if you don't yield to him, I'm killing the 3 of you right now, right? It is either accept that shame or die, because he's teaching them a lesson, right? And if they won't learn that lesson, then he's gonna kill them. They would merit death because they would be completely false knights like Sir Paris. Yeah. Anyway, so it is because he is obviously very interested in the lesson of shame that he's trying to teach them. That also is how I am reading his words to Kay. So when he says, as ye will have my help, let me alone with him, I don't think he's saying, I'm only going to help you if you let me do it all, right? Because it could be, David, you were suggesting this before. David Urbach was saying it kind of sounds like the first impression is that he's just being a glory hound, right? I insist on having the full honor of this combat to myself. But I don't think so. I think that he's explaining this is what needs to happen. It's like, I don't have time to spell this all out for you, right? Just like, trust me, I've got a reason for this. Let me do it this way, right? This is how it needs to happen. And Kay's like, well, okay. And David, I do agree that it is interesting that Sir Kay is the knight being saved, since he's often treats other people disrespectfully. But we see that Lancelot, is kind of, in that sense, pouring heaps of coals upon his head. Sorry, strange biblical image. But anyway, and yes, he does do it anonymously. He doesn't even tell these knights who he was, right? So he's not doing it for personal glory. Though in the end, he will get personal glory from it. But let's, after this, so the next morning, he takes off in Kay's armor, right? Kay wakes up for a late breakfast at the farm where they're staying. I love it, by the way, when Lancelot goes back into the house and the farmer's like, hey, I thought you were upstairs. And Lancelot I was, jumped out the window. Sorry, you had to be there. Anyway, Lancelot wakes up the next morning, puts on Kay's armor and takes off with it. So Kay wakes up and he finds only Sir Lancelot's armor left there, right? And I love Kay's reaction. Kay's reaction is like, well, so I'm sure gonna have a quiet ride back, right? No one's gonna mess with me because they're gonna think I'm Sir Lancelot. And he seems to suspect that Sir Lancelot is aiming to pick some fights with people at Arthur's court who wouldn't fight with him because he's Sir Lancelot. Not because he's from Arthur's court, because apparently they'll fight with Kay, right? But they'll fight with Kay because they think they can beat him, right? So again, this whole like rivalry within the Knights of Arthur's court, as long as it's all in good fun, seems to be fine. Seems to be fine. Okay. And so Sir Lancelot passed by him. So he, in Kay's armor, he rides past these other 4 knights of Arthur's court, including, this is including Sir, no, is this the one with the group with Sir Gawain in it? Anyway, I'm not quite sure yet. Okay. And so Sir Lancelot passed by him and spake no word. But when he was past, the 3 knightes knew him, and said it was the proud Sir Kay. He wenteth no knight so good as he, and the contrary is often proved. By my faith, said one of the knightes, his name was Sir Gautera. I will ride after him and assay him for all his pride, and ye may behold how that I speed. And so Sir Gauter armed him, and hung his shield upon his shoulder, and mounted upon a great horse, and got his spear in hand, and walloped after Sir Lancelot. By the way, walloped is one of my favorite verbs. And the only time the word wallop is cooler is when it's used as a noun. Like, he rode a great wallop. That's even cooler than he walloped after Sir Lancelot. It, of course, means galloped. But walloped, I mean, come on, how much cooler is that than gallop? So any of you equestrians out there, I recommend that you adopt the word wallop instead of gallop, because it's just so much cooler. It is not related to galumph, I don't think, Deborah. It contrives to be even cooler than galumph, which is tough. Okay. Right, get his spear in hand, and walloped after Sir Lancelot. And when he come nigh him, he cried, Abide, thou proud knight Sir Kay, for thou shalt not pass all quit. So Sir Lancelot turned him, and either feutered their spears, and come together with all their mighties, and Sir Gauter's spear brak, but Sir Lancelot smote him down, horse and man, and when he was at the earth, his brethren sighed, Yonder knight is not Sir Kay, for he is far bigger than he. Notice how Lancelot carries himself on here, right? He doesn't challenge people. He doesn't go up challenging people as Sir Kay. Notice the situation. This is interesting because it's not a situation that he is placed in by our narrator, right? This is a situation that Lancelot himself contrives by dressing up as Sir Kay, but then he rides along, minding his own business. Oh, 4 knights. Hi there. Hi, Sir Kay, just riding by, minding my own business, right? And they come up and challenge him. And why do they challenge him? They challenge him because Kay is arrogant, right? Kay is always boastful, even though he can't always back up his own boasting, right? He carries on as if he were the best knight in the world, although the contrary is often proved, as Sir Gauter says, right? So Sir Gauter is intending to bring Sir Kay down a peg or two. And instead, of course, he takes a great fall because it's really Sir Lancelot. So what's the point? Carita, yeah, Sir Kay is kind of a jerk. Yeah, that's traditional now. But yeah, Sir Kay he's been kind of a jerk for several hundred years. He wasn't originally. Back in the old Celtic stories of Arthur, like in the Mabinogian stories, Kay is one of the great warriors and heroes. There's nothing unpleasant about Kay back in those days. But by the time King Arthur goes to France, Kay is a jerk. Throughout Chrétien de Troyes, he's a pretty big jerk, for instance. Yeah. So yeah, that they do exactly, David, want to take Sir Kay down a peg or two, yet they then receive a rebuke for that. One of the lessons that I kind of have to sort of draw from this Maybe Kay is arrogant, right? Maybe Kay deserves it. Maybe he does. But what they're doing and the reason they're doing it, I'm thinking maybe isn't great, right? Yeah, being a jerk to another jerk is still unknightly. Yeah, exactly. And by the way, I love the word bigger here. Of course, bigger means much more than just like, doesn't just mean like he's bulkier, right? He is far bigger than he means better fighter. Like that is a superior knight, right? That is not Sir Kay. Sir Kay could never have done that. Josiah says probably Lancelot thinks they should respect the office of Seneschal. Maybe. Maybe he's doing it as a favor to King Arthur because he knows that King Arthur loves Sir Kay, right? And so he, by doing this, is going to make people think twice before coming up and beating on Sir Kay. That might be another possibility. Then you have the confrontation with Sir Gawain. Sir Gawain is with, and I'm pretty sure now, this is a different set, right? So he meets two sets of knights when he's dressed up in Kay's armor. The first is this sort of random knights that he meets. But then he meets four major knights of Arthur's court. One of whom, by the way, is his own cousin, Sir Bors, and one of whom is Sir Gawain. And he beats all four of them. And Sir Gawain last. This confrontation between Sir Gawain and Sir Lancelot, this is a big deal, right? I mean, this is like the past meets the future. This is like, who is really the top Arthurian knight for all the marbles, right? Again, Sir Gawain is the traditional Arthurian hero. Everybody, I think everyone who picked up this book would have expected that Sir Gawain is going to be the hero. If there's one thing that Malory has done which is weird, which is deviant from tradition, we see him rely on tradition and the stories that people are already going to know. The biggest weird thing that he does is make Gawain a villain. Not a total villain, just a vastly inferior knight. So here we have the old champion against the new champion, right? Now see I will, said Sir Gawain. I must encounter with that knight. He's got no choice. The other three all went and were defeated, right? He can't hold back or he'll look like a coward. And dressed his shield, and got a good spear in his hand, and let ren at Sir Lancelot with all his might, and either knight smote other in midst of the shield. But Sir Gawaine's spear brast, and Sir Lancelot charged so sore upon him that his horse reversed upso down. And much sorrow has Sir Gawain to avoid his horse. And so Sir Lancelot passed on a pass, and smiled and said, God give him joy that this spear mad, for there come never a better in my hand. Then the four knights went each unto other, and comforted each other, and said, What say ye by this guest? Said Sir Gawain, that with one spear hath felled us all four. We command him to the devil, they say all, for he is a man of great might. Now, they don't mean that, literally, right? But they're expressing in slightly comical terms their displeasure, right? We commend him to the devil. What do you say of this guy? We commend him to the devil. I guess they'll laugh about it later, right? The four of them will laugh with Lancelot about this later. He is a man of great might, right? No question. The flipping up so doon of Gawain's horse, I've always, that seems to me, I can't resist reading that allegorically, right? What Lancelot's example does, right, comes in, and Gawain, taking Gawain as a the paragon of knighthood and really turning it on its head so that he is underneath his horse and barely able to avoid it, right? It's not just that Lancelot beats him, right? Lancelot beats Gawain emphatically, and, he's turned upside down. And I can't resist the connection that just as Malory has sort of turned Gawain upside down in the story as well. All right, let's keep going. I've got a couple slides left here. Oh, yes, this is where Lancelot wants to go in there and face the peril. Is the Chapel Perilous. So remember the setup for this, right? Lancelot meets a brachet, a hound, you'll recall. And the brachet, there's blood. There's a trail of blood, like a visible trail of blood. So the brachet is following the blood. So Lancelot's, okay, hey, I shall follow the brachet, who's following the blood. And so he goes into this castle and he finds the corpse of a knight. And then a lady bursts in. And she's like, you killed my lover. And he's like, no, he was totally dead when I got here, right? Now remember, if this was Sir Balin, that lady would totally have killed herself, and Merlin would have popped up and been like, for that reason, because she killed herself, you're gonna, like, horrible things gonna happen to you. So he's there, and the lady says, oh yeah, so yeah, she's like, okay, so the knight who killed my lover, right? I'm gonna make sure he never recovers from his wound. And the way she says it, it's fairly ominous, right? It's fairly ominous that he is going to be that he's going to be facing, or that she has said she's going to make sure that other knight doesn't recover, right? So then he wanders off and he finds the lady of the wounded knight. She's like, Sir Knight, can you possibly help me? And he's like, well, okay, what do you need? And she says, my lover has been wounded after he, was in a combat with this other dude, and like his lady is a sorceress and she enchanted him, and now like he can't ever be cured of that wound unless somebody goes to the Chapel Perilous. You have to get the sword of the dead guy, and you have to get a piece of his clothing to come and use those things to heal my lord. Okay. So he's like, Chapel Perilous. All right, no problem. Right so Sir Lancelot departed, and when he come to the Chapel Perilous, he alight down and tied his horse unto a little gate, a little gate. And as soon as he was within the churchyard, he saw on the front of the chapel many fire rich shields, turn it up so doon, and many of those shields Sir Lancelot had seen Canichtas bear beforehand. With that he saw by him there stond a 30 great Canichtas, more by a yard than any man that ever he had seen, and all they grened and gnasted at Sir Lancelot. And when he saw their countenance, he dread him sore, and so put his shield before him, and took his sword in his hand, ready unto battle. And they all were armed, all in black harness, ready with her shields and her swords ready drawn. And as Sir Lancelot would have gone through them, they scattered on every side of him, and gaf him the way. And therewith he waxed bold, and entered into the chapel. And there he saw no licht, but a dim lamp brenning, and then he was ware of a corpus, hilled with a cloth of silk. Then Sir Lancelot stooped down, and cut a piece away of that cloth, and then it fared under him as the ground had quacked a little. Therewithal he feared. And then he saw a fair sword lie by the dead Canicht, and that he gat in his hand, and hied him out of the chapel. Anon as ever he was in the chapel yard, all the Canichtas spake to him with grimly voices, and said, Canicht, Sir Lancelot, lay that sword from thee, or thou shalt die. Whether that I live or other die, said Sir Lancelot, with no words great get ye hit again, therefore fight for hit, and ye list. Then, right so, he passed throughout them. Okay, so Gnasted. Come on. That's another pretty awesome verb, right? They grinned and gnasted at Sir Lancelot. So this is really creepy, isn't it? This is a bit of a foretaste. There's going to be a bunch of stuff like this that happens in the quest for the Holy Grail. This whole thing is set up like a test of Sir Lancelot, right? Notice what's being tested. What is being tested? What does he prove here? In one sense, it's kind of easy, right? I mean, nothing actually happens to him. He walks in, knights jump out, and they gnast at him, and then they let him pass through, right? He passes through, cuts off a piece of the cloth, picks up the sword, a little bit of an earthquake, a little bit frightening, but then he comes out, the knights come around, they're like, we're going to kill you, but they don't, right? He just walks through them again. The end. So he didn't actually have to do anything except walk in and walk out. Yes, the knights got gnasty, Arthur. They did. Yeah, it's true. What's the test here? He passes a test of what exactly? Of resolution? Okay, notice, what did it take to win here? Would these 30 knights have not attacked anybody? Right? Are they just window dressing? I'm not sure. I'm not sure that that's true. But what we do see is that both ways, right? Both coming in and going out, when he showed his resolution, his willingness to fight the lot of them, right? They didn't fight him. They want him to give up. They want him to yield. They want him to say, it can't be done. They want him to say, there is no way. If I fight 30, 1 on 30, yeah, I'm kind of all that, but I am not going to be able to kill 30 guys, right? This is probably, is this even worth it to kill 30 guys for the sake of healing this other guy whose girlfriend I just met, right? I don't even know anything about this dude. Yeah, it is. Now, I don't think it's a test of piety exactly yet. That's not explicit. Yes, it's in a chapel, but it's just in a chapel because that's where you'd find a corpse. If you're looking for a corpse and you need to take a piece of his grave clothes and his sword, then you go into a chapel to find him, right? It's what he does is not especially reverent. In fact, you could argue that it's irreverent. It's not exactly grave robbing, though. Not exactly. He's kind of looting the corpse, but that's not his motivation to loot the corpse. He's been told and believes that the only way to heal this knight, the only way to stop, and remember, this knight has been betrayed, right? He has been ensorcelled by a sorceress. His wound has been cursed. So in order to the only way to break this curse on the knight is with the piece of cloth and with the sword from the dead guy. That being the case, he's not robbing, he's not committing theft, he's not committing sacrilege, but he's not exactly committing an act of reverence either. He's doing a thing for a good cause. He's willing to go into, it is a sort of an awful sacred space, and there's something going on there. The earthquake is alarming, right? That would be a good excuse to not carry on following through, right? But he does. So, is he willing to persevere despite weirdness, despite creepiness, despite fantastic odds stacked against him? Yes, he's willing to go through with that and to walk that path. And that seems to be the test that was being made for him. We will see many of this kind of test in the quest for the Holy Grail. The difference is it's going to mean more, by which I don't mean the stakes will be higher. That's true too. But what I really mean is there will be more meaning attached to it. Each element of the thing will have more meaning, and there will be, Tim, much more at stake when it comes to piety and reverence and things like that than was the case here. Here it was just keeping his word to help this stranger. Yeah. But after he gets out of the Perilous Chapel, he meets the lady who set up the Perilous Chapel. This is my favorite story. Now, gentle Knecht, sighed the damosel, I require thee to kiss me, but honest. This is like Lancelot's average day, right? Nay, said Sir Lancelot, that God me forbade. Well, sir, said she, an thou hadst kissed me, thy life days had be done. And now, alas, she sighed, I have lost all my labour, for I ordained this chapel for thy sake, and for Sir Gawain. And honest I had him within me, and at that time he fought with this Knecht that lieth dead in yonder chapel, Sir Gilbert the bastard, and at that time he smote the left hand of Sir Gilbert. And Sir Launcelot, now I tell thee, I have loved thee this 7 year, but there may no woman have thy love but Queen Guinevere, and sithen I might not rejoice thee neither thy body on live, I had kept no more joy in this world but to have thy body dead. Then would I have baumed it, and seared it, and so have kept it my live days, and daily I should have clipped thee and kissed thee, despite of Queen Guinevere. Ye say well, say Sir Lancelot. I love that response. Like, what do you say? What do you say to somebody who just said that? Oh man, that is just. I never cannot laugh when I read that. Ye say well. It says. Jesu preserve me from your subtle craftiness, he adds afterwards. Oh, whew, really dodged a bullet there. Okay, James Stevens argues that her crafts don't seem so subtle. Well, they are. She is using great subtlety. Oh man. Oh boy. I will never forget how long I laughed about this passage when I first read it in college. I was like reading it and I'm like, okay, I have to have read that wrong. And I can't say what I thought that said. No, she's gonna embalm his body and keep it as a toy. And all her life days, she will daily have clipped and kissed, hugged and kissed his embalmed corpse, and been like, so there, Queen Guinevere, I've got him and you don't. Clipped just means hugged. Have clipped thee. So the picture she's painting is like every day she was going to snuggle down with the embalmed corpse of Sir Lancelot and like hold it in her arms and kiss him. Yeah, that's what she means. I don't know if the kiss itself was going to be fatal, if she had woven some spell such that if he did kiss her, he would drop dead. That the kiss would actually have been the mortal stroke, right? I think so. Hadst and thou hadst kissed me, thy life days had be done. Oh boy. It doesn't get any better than this. Notice how this this passage serves as an extreme example of the rightness of Lancelot's virtue in action, right? I mean, come on, let's face it. If this had been another night, right? And she delivered that line. I require thee to kiss me but once. That's all. Just, I only need one kiss from you. Come on. Like King Pellinor is going to say no to that, right? No way, man. King Pellinor would be like, oh, well, my damsel, if if you need a kiss, you need a kiss, right? How can I pass that up? Exactly, Mike. But Sir Lancelot, right? No way. Sir Lancelot is like, no, I don't play that way, right? Absolutely not. God forbid I should kiss you. I mean, again, what other knight in the world would be like, God forbid I kiss you, right? I kiss a damsel just because she asks me to. But of course, had it been any other knight, he would have been dead and embalmed. And satisfying her necrophiliac pleasure for the rest of his, well, her life. No, dolorous stroke, I agree. Even as it affirms Lancelot's virtue, Haluis, the lady, is criticizing him for loving Guinevere. Again, this is like, because you won't play along, right? These are the lengths that I have been pushed to, because like, since you refuse to play the game, right? No woman can have your love but Queen Guinevere. Everybody knows Queen Guinevere's off limits, right? You loser, right? So come on, you're the greatest knight in the world. You won't play the game. I, wanted to have you for myself, and now obviously I can't have you because you're Mr. I won't play the game, and you only love Queen Guinevere. So I've got no choice but to kill you, embalm you, and, snuggle on a daily basis with your embalmed corpse. Clearly, that's the only option that remains to her. But you're right, Dolly. She does put this back on. She does put this back on him, essentially, right? And on Guinevere, it's sort of indirectly. Mike, I agree. She does seem to have been planning this for some time. Absolutely. Creepily so. I mean, yikes. Karita's wondering if his virtue might be part of the draw for this super creepy lady. Maybe, in a sense. I mean, in a sense that his virtue, the fact that he is not just slightly better than everybody else, that he is in a completely unique category of knighthood, right, makes him, it's not just like, I love you, 15% more, than I would love King Pellinor or whatever. It is interesting that she would have accepted Sir Gawain, and I don't know how Sir Gawain got out of this, because he would totally have kissed her. She must not have prepared the whole the Egyptian special for Sir Gawain. That's all I can think of. And in case you're thinking that he's being crude and explicit in saying, and honest, I had him within me, that means within my grasp. I am quite sure is what she means by that. I had him within my grasp, and at that time he fought with it. So Sir Gawain fought with Sir Gilbert the Bastard and smote the left hand of Sir Gilbert, and then she doesn't say anything else about what happened, right? But she says she ordained the chapel for either him or Gawain. So it sounds like she's willing to accept Sir Gawain as a backup, right? Like he's the, Sir Lancelot's plan A, but Sir Gawain would be like plan B, I guess. But it's unclear what happened. Did he just smite Sir Gilbert's left hand and then void? And never got a chance to like give her a kiss or get embalmed or anything else? I'm not really 100% sure about what happened, because it's a little hard for me to imagine Sir Gawain not succumbing to the whole "I require thee to kiss me, but honest" line. It's all good fun. All right, it's getting late. We started a little bit late, but one more. The lady, hawking. Her hawk gets caught in a tree by its jesses, and there's the poor hawk, tangled up and dangling by its jesses from the branch, and he's looking up and he's like, oh man, poor hawk, right? Ah, Lancelot, Lancelot, as thou art flower of all knightes, help me to get my hawk. For and my hawk be lost, my lord will destroy me. For I kept the hawk, and she slipped from me. And if my lord, my husband, weet it, he is so hasty that he will slay me. "What is your lord's name?" said Sir Lancelot. "Sire," she said, "her name is Sir Phelot. His name is Sir Phelot, a knight that longeth unto the king of Northgalis." "Well, fair laddie, sin that ye knew my name and require me of knighthood to help, I will so what I may to get your hawk. And yet God knoweth I am an evil climber, and the tree is passing high, and few boughs to help me withal." And therewith Sir Lancelot alighted, and tied his horse to the same tree, and prayed the laddie to unarm him. See, now he needs help. And so, when he was unarmed, he put off all his clothes unto his shirt and his breech. And with meek and great force he clamb up to the falcon, and tied the lunas to a great rotten bush, and threw the hawk down with the bush. This is, of course, great problem solving by Lancelot, right? How do you hand somebody her hawk? You know, it's like, okay, I've untied the hawk. Now what do you do with it, right? What, let it go? Chuck it down? No, so he's clever, right? He breaks off a dead branch and he ties the hawk to the dead branch and he chucks the branch with hawk down to the lady. Problem solved. I love that little detail. And anon, the laddie got the hawk in her hand, and therewithal come out Sir Phelot out of the grievous suddenly, that was her husband, all armed, and with his naked sword in his hand, and said, "Ah, knight, Sir Lancelot, now I have found thee as I wold," he standing at the bole of the tree to slay him. "Ah, laddie," said Sir Lancelot, "why have ye betrayed me?" Okay, so, yeah, Karina, that sounds exactly like the kind of challenge you would run into, especially in like an old text-based video game adventure, right? You know, like you are in a tree, you have a hawk, what do you do? Yeah, I totally, absolutely. So yes, Karina, you're right. Lancelot is not good at tree climbing. Tree climbing, not among his many skills and talents, right? But of course, because he has much might and great force, he's able to manage it. His little speech is oh no, Karina, he's not totally naked. He's not totally naked. He's wearing his shirt and his breeches. So basically, he's in his undergarments, right? He's wearing his small clothes here. So he's stripped down to his skivvies, but no further than that. So yeah, so he climbs the tree. But I love that. I'm an evil climber, right? I'm not good at this. And the tree is passing high, and few boughs to help me withal. It's so cute, right? But he's Sir Lancelot, and notice, "Sin ye canoe my name, and require me of knighthood to help, I will so as I may," right? I'm bound to do what help I may to help you, a damsel who has requested this help, by my name and invoking me by my name and by my knighthood, right? There's no way I can get out of this, right? Even though I'm a bad climber and this is super awkward, but I'm going to do what I can. So he does what he can. And yeah, it is a little bit Puddleglumish, Josiah, I agree. But of course, it all turns out to be a trap, right? This is a setup by Sir Phelot, who is just trying to kill him, right? So now Lancelot is trapped up a tree with no weapons and no armor, and here's the fully armed knight with his naked sword at the bottom of the tree, waiting. All right, come on down, Sir Lancelot, right? And I'm going to kill you while you're naked and unarmed. That obviously horribly dishonorable. What the lady did, his use of his wife is totally dishonorable as well, right? To put another knight at disadvantage by manipulating his oath of knighthood, right? I mean, that's super, super low. You remember how Lancelot gets out of this one, right? Okay, so what do you do? What do you do in this circumstance? Well, you break a bough off the tree, right? There are a few boughs to help him with all, but nevertheless, he gets one of them, right? The hawk just got stuck up there. But I mean, I don't know how they contrived to get the hawk to do it, right? To like, I doubt the hawk was complicit in the scheme, right? But anyway, yeah. So he tears off a branch, and Veronica, exactly as you point out, he and as Tarlonio was suggesting too, he will hereafter be known as well, not Lancelot Oaken Shield. He'll be Lancelot Oaken Sword, I guess, or Oaken Club or something. But yeah, so he takes his bow and he jumps. I love his initial move, right? He jumps down on the other side of fortunately his horse is still there, right? His faithful steed is still at the bottom of the tree. So he's able to climb out a bough, jump down to put the horse between him and the knight who's waiting for him, and then manage to contrive to club the knight and, so that he's not, basically, he's trying to prevent the knight with the sword from getting an attack of opportunity, is essentially what's happening here in Dungeons and Dragons terms, right? But he managed to get on the other side of his horse, kills the knight, right? Offs him. This is Lancelot, again, no, with one shot, right? Lancelot, again, he's not pulling his punch here because this is a knight. This knight he deserves to die, not just to be killed, not to be shamed. This is an act of treason and treachery. This knight has earned capital punishment, and he deals it out, right, and defends it afterwards. The lady's like, "You killed my husband," and he's like, "Darn right, I killed your husband," right? That was a horrible thing that he did. I was defending my own life, and anyway, he totally deserved it. But he doesn't punish her, right? He doesn't do anything bad to her. Josiah said Lancelot missed the class on burning pine cones. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think, Karita, I think he jumped next to his horse. He jumped, because it said that he jumped on the other side of his horse. So he was using his horse essentially as an obstacle, right? So again, so that the guy wouldn't, as he's jumping down, wouldn't be able to, so he wouldn't be jumping down like onto the upheld sword of the knight below him, right? How do you handle that? And Veronica, yeah, he does seem to give the lady not exactly a pass. I mean, he chides her, right, for acting treacherously to him, but he does give her a pass. He doesn't kill her or punish her in any other way, because what could she do? Right, her husband commanded her to do it. Yeah. Okay. Last one. We have time for one more. Oh man, this is when Lancelot interrupts somebody trying to decapitate his wife. Right, and she's like, "Help, my husband's trying to kill me." And he's like, "What are you doing? Stop it." So he makes Sir Bedivere stop murdering his wife. "What hast thou to do betwixt me and my wife? I will slay her maugre thine head." "That shall ye not," said Sir Lancelot, for rather we will have ado togedders." "Sir Lancelot," said the Knight, "thou dost not thy part, for this laddie hath betrayed me." Notice the situation Lancelot's being put in here. Hey, Mr. Defender of sexual purity, right? I caught her committing adultery. She's guilty, right? I can kill her. Like that's okay, isn't it? Right? Why are you taking her part? She's in the wrong, Lancelot. Especially by your own moral code, right? "It is not so," sighed the laddie. "Truly, he saith wrong on me. And for because I love and cherish my cousin Germain, he is jealous betwixt me and him. And as I mut answer to God, there was never seen betwixt us none such thing is. But sir, said the laddie, as thou art called the worshipfullest knecht of the world, I require thee of true knechthood, keep me and salve me, for whatsoever he say, he will slay me, for he is without mercy. Have ye no doubt, it shall not lie in his power. Notice Lancelot does not pause here, right? She's like, he's lying on me. He's jealous of her and her cousin. Apparently she and her cousin are close, right? She's like, there's nothing inappropriate going on between me and my first cousin, cousin German, right? But, you know, my husband is jealous betwixt me and him. He is jealous of me, his wife. So, yeah. And don't trust him because he's going to kill me no matter what you try to do. Lancelot does not rise. You know, Sir Pedivere, the guy here, says, like, it's my right. It's my right to kill her. And he insists on a fair hearing of her side, and he takes her side immediately. Have ye no doubt it shall not lie in his power. There's no question for Lancelot here, right? He's not like, well, if you are guilty, how can I be sure to believe you? No, you've got a guy who's trying to swap the head off of a lady. He's not going to take the part of that knight. And so Sir Lancelot rode on the one side, and she on the other side. And he had not ridden but a while. But the knecht bade Sir Lancelot turn him and look behind him, and said, Sir, yonder come men of arms after us riding. And so Sir Lancelot turned him, and thought no treason. And therewith was the knecht and the laddie on one side, and suddenly he swapped off the laddie's head. And when Sir Lancelot had espied him and what he had done, he sighed and so called him, Traitor, thou hast shamed me for ever. And suddenly Sir Lancelot leaped off his horse and pulled out his sword to slay him, and therewith he, that is the other knight, not Lancelot, fell to the earth and gripped Sir Lancelot by the thighs and cried, Mercy. Oh man, what a muddle. Oh man, Lancelot fell for the hey, look behind you trick, right? So Jennifer, I don't think he plans to ride around between the two of them forever. But he's on his way. He's on his way back to the court. This is near the end of the book. So he's almost back to Arthur. So he's clearly planning to like bring her to Arthur's court and seek, you know, sanctuary for her there at Arthur's court. But he's going to make darn sure that he rides between them the whole way, right? But he fights the classic blunder, right? He falls for the whole look behind you trick. And Carita says Lancelot's like my dog when I fake throw a ball. Yeah, exactly. Something like that. David Orbach is wondering if this suggests that Lancelot is in fact a touch too naive. Yeah, I mean, David, in a sense, what Sir Pedivere manages to create here is a kind of a fake conflict of duties. On the one hand, Lancelot has agreed to keep himself between this lady and her husband, right, and to prevent him from decapitating her. But of course, it's also his duty to make sure that men of arms don't ride up and run off with her, right? So if they're under attack by multiple men of arms, if there are multiple knights or whatever coming up and attacking them, it's his job, right, to put himself between them and her. So there is a perceived, like a phantom division of duties, right, for Lancelot here. Telling us that he couldn't just look over his shoulder. Well, here, no, he can't. I've only been in plate mail once, but no, I'm pretty sure he couldn't just look over his shoulder. He's in armor, right? If you want to look behind you, you've pretty much got to turn your horse. You know, there's no, if you're, yeah. So, in order to turn around and look behind him, he's got to turn his whole horse around. And when he turns his horse around, now he's not between them anymore, right? And so the other knight immediately decapitates his wife, but then immediately begs for mercy, and once again putting Lancelot in a difficult situation. But notice the temptation here, right? The big temptation. He has failed to protect the lady. He said he would protect her, that it will not lie in that knight's power, in her husband's power to kill her, and he did, right? And he says, you have shamed me forever. I have failed in what I said I would do. But that's not the real test, right? I mean, that's bad, and that's unfortunate. But the real test is, how are you going to respond to that, Lancelot, right? Are you going to kill him? He's there begging for mercy. He doesn't want to fight you. He knows you're going to kick his butt, right? That's why he didn't challenge you to a fight the first time, right? When you were keeping him from decapitating his wife in the first place. So, are you going to kill him because you're mad? Are you going to take vengeance on him because he shamed you? Are you going to try to avenge your own shame on him, which would be wrong, right? Are you going to try the whole two wrongs making a right thing, right? That is clearly a severe temptation for Lancelot here. He is upset. He is exasperated, and the guy deserves it. He not only has shamed Lancelot, he just murdered his wife not in front of Lancelot, behind Lancelot's back, right there. He just killed her. He's guilty, right? And he's acted traitorously to Lancelot as well. So I mean, by an act of low cunning and deceit to Lancelot, he contrived to commit murder right there. And he's responsible for Lancelot's shame. This guy has it coming, but he's asking for mercy. He's asking for mercy. Are you going to make an exception, right? Are you going to kill this guy who seems to really deserve killing? Even though it would be wrong because he's asking mercy. If you're Lancelot, no, not even under such extreme circumstances, right? So the whole lack of vigilance, his naivete, that's not great. Do I think his performance here was flawless? I think that he would be the last person to call his performance in this particular test flawless. But, exactly, Stephen, many that live deserve death, and some that die deserve life, right? Absolutely. What's going to happen? What's going to happen to this guy? Do you remember the result here? And no, David, Sir Pedivere and Sir Bedivere are not the same. Almost, right? But they're not the same guys. Sir Bedivere was from the older generation of knights, like Sir Brastias and Sir Ulfius. He was back there with Arthur at the very beginning, in first battles after the pulling the sword out of the stone. Sir Pedivere is different. Yeah, he becomes a hermit. He becomes a holy man. He repents, in short, and dedicates the rest of his life to fasting and prayer and penance, right? He does have to drag his dead wife all around Europe. It is absolutely true. And then until they mercifully bury his wife in Rome, right? So yeah, I mean, it's, and this is the penance signed to him by the court of ladies, right? When Lancelot brings him before Guinevere is appalled and makes him bear the corpse of his wife all the way to Rome, asking for forgiveness of the Pope, who assigns him penance. But anyway, he ends up repenting and becoming a holy man, right? It can happen. Sir Pedivere, he's not good, right? I mean, this is a bad man, but he's not bad like Sir Tarquin. He's not bad like Sir Paris. And he makes a good end. That happens. That can happen. Well, that can happen if you don't decapitate the dude in the heat of the moment, right? So again, Lancelot passes the test, and again, good comes of it. not just for him, but for others, right? Lancelot, Guinevere dresses him down a little bit for allowing the lady to get killed. But at the end of the day, he didn't do the really wrong thing. He succeeded in the real test. All right. Thus ends the tale of Sir Lancelot. I wanted to make sure we got through the whole thing. Sorry for keeping you a little bit late, but let's do our drawing. I want to do our drawing before we leave. So let me just see here quick. Couple things. I'm going to check and see how many people we have on Twitch here tonight and how many we have in the net moot as well. And I'm going to first, let's do a drawing among our donors for the evening. Oh, that is just lovely. Thank you for that. I see a couple new monthly donations. That is especially wonderful. And thank you, everybody, for your generous donations. Let me see. I will. Okay. And the winner of our donor drawing is Takako Tasai. Thank you for your gifts. And you are the... No, we don't need to transfer over to Twitch. I'll do it all. I'll do it all in one shot. Congratulations, Takako. Thank you for your attendance and your donations. You win. So send an email to donate@signumu.org. I'm afraid we don't yet have a regional moot very close to you, Takako. Takako lives in Japan. Maybe someday. Maybe we'll get to Nippon moot someday, Takako. But I don't know if it's going to happen very soon. But anyway, send an email to donate@signumu.org and we'll get you set up with a prize anyway. Okay, so now let me do the larger drawing of everybody else. Okay, so looking again at the Twitch numbers, got it. Okay, so that's okay. So our winner is somebody on Twitch. Oh, our winner is Boomful. Boomful, you are the winner. All right, very good, Boomful. So, again, send an email to donate@signumu.org, and we'll get either a pair of tickets to a regional moot near you. I'm not quite sure where you are, Boomful. So wherever you are, we'll see when and where we have a regional moot near you. We can offer you some tickets to that, or a book should you choose. Yeah, awesome. Okay, so thanks everybody for joining me here tonight. Thanks, Sharon. I will do that. And just to remind you, these are the book choices. 5 books. My Hobbit book, the Harry Potter and the Sorcerer/Philosopher's Stone, Unfinished Tales, Sauron Defeated, our next book after Malory, or Dune by Frank Herbert. And these, of course, will all come with a customized book plate that I have made up for these books for your commemorative edition. Thanks, everybody, for joining me tonight. Don't forget, if you've donated either now or at other time or a time in the future soon still to come, don't forget to send an email to donate@signumu.org and mention the Mythgard Academy, and we will enter you into our big Mythgard Academy drawing for anytime audit classes and special privileges and all kinds of cool things during the webathon. So thanks, everybody. And I will see you guys next week, and hopefully some of you at Middlemoot in Kansas City this weekend. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
The Mythgard Academy has been offering in-depth discussions of awesome books and films since 2013, completely free to attend and free to download. If you've enjoyed our discussions and would like to help them continue, please consider donating at signumuniversity.org/fund.